Hello friend, today you are going to watch most expensive ship accidents and crashes caught on camera videos, and if like to see anything you can comment me in below box.
Bridge crash. Bridges often pose a problem for ships, and there are lots of examples of captains not quite gauging their clearance correctly. In 2014, a brand new cruise liner costing $44 million managed to hit a bridge in China as it was being towed along to port. Perhaps the worst example though happened in Bangkok in 2017 when a barge hit the support strut of a bridge through the city. The bridge collapsed on top of the barge, causing millions of dollars worth of damage and taking out a vital transport link in the process. Number 12. Russian yacht. With so much open ocean available, it seems incredible that these two boats managed to collide. But they certainly did, and it caused a huge amount of damage. Fortunately, there were no injuries beyond a few scrapes and bruises, but there's been debate over who was at fault here. The boat from where the video was recorded appears to be stationary, which means that the approaching boat was definitely in the wrong and should have taken evasive action. Number 11. Boat collision with wall. In 2017, this Naviera Armas ferry was leaving the Puerta de la Luz on the island of Gran Canaria when there was an electrical failure, one that caused the boat to crash directly into the port wall. As you can see, the impact destroys the wall and the ship has no choice but to stay in place while authorities arrive to survey the damage. 13 passengers were injured in the incident, but the biggest consequences was still to be uncovered. The collapse of the wall damaged 2 vehicles that were refueling a nearby ship and caused 200,000 liters of fuel to be spilt into the water. The damage to the wall alone was projected to cost many millions of euros, and that's before lawsuits of injured passengers, the cost of repairing the ferry, and cleaning up the oil slick is taken into account. Number 10. The El Faro. The El Faro disaster is remembered as one of America's worst maritime incidents ever. The container ship was traveling from Florida to Puerto Rico in September of 2015 when, during an attempt to avoid a storm, it sailed directly into Hurricane Joaquin. The ship struggled in the treacherous conditions and sunk on October 1st, with 33 crew losing their lives. The wreckage that you see in this footage was found a month later at a depth of 15,000 feet. The lessons learned from this tragedy led to changes in maritime law to hopefully prevent anything of this scale from happening again. Number 9. Hong Kong container ship run aground. This next video comes from April of 2014 when the container ship Hansa Constitution suffered a power loss and was blown off course by the wind. The sound you hear is the anchor dragging on the seabed. Taking place in a busy shipping canal, it's perhaps fortunate that the ship crashed into the football field of the local university. The 193-meter-long ship ran aground and required 2 diving support vessels and 2 fireboats to help dislodge it and tow it away. With no hull breaches or significant damage to its surrounding infrastructure, the greatest cost of this incident was in fixing the power issue of the ship and the delayed delivery of its cargo. Number 8. The USS Fitzgerald. Militaries have the most advanced navigation systems in the world, but that doesn't stop them from having the occasional collision. This happened to the USS Fitzgerald in 2017 when it collided with a merchant ship near Japan. 7 sailors sadly lost their lives in the incident, and mainly due to flood damage, the repair bill ran into the tens of millions of dollars. In 2009, a German naval training mission experienced a similar, entirely avoidable collision. Those steering the Gepard-class speedboat were watching the front ship closely, but completely forgot about the one following it. They crashed straight into its side and had to cut their day short for repairs. Number 7. MV Rena. In October of 2011, the MV Rena, a 236-meter container vessel, ran aground on a reef in the Bay of Plenty in New Zealand. Fuel started to pour into the ocean that would go on to become the country's worst ever environmental disaster, and within a week almost 1,400 containers had also fallen into the sea. Beyond the irreparable damage to the local ecosystem, the cleanup operation and salvage cost more than $500 million, with efforts still underway to help the region recover. Number 6. Speedboat crash. Here's something we haven't seen so far, an insanely fast boat. At the 2014 Lake of the Ozarks Shootout boat race, this catamaran at the event, made by Outer Limits Powerboats, was speeding at close to 180 miles per hour when it started to fly. Literally. As its tip started to rise, it slipped, flying high into the air after crashing back down onto the water. While the boat, worth millions of dollars, was likely totaled after this wasn't the biggest loss here. Despite both drivers living through the crash, Michael Fiore, the driver and CEO of Outer Limits Powerboats, passed away due to surgery complications days later. Number 5. MV Tricolor. The MV Tricolor holds the maritime record for the most crashes resulting from one incident. In December of 2002, it crashed into another container ship in the English Channel and became wedged on its side in one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. Despite extensive warnings that were put in place in the surrounding area, 2 more ships managed to crash into the MV Tricolor, with huge amounts of oil and wreckage being released into the water. In total, it's estimated that the cleanup operation alone cost around $40 million. Number 4. Exxon Valdez. The Exxon Valdez oil spill is one of the most infamous maritime disasters in history and one of the most environmentally destructive. It happened in 1989 when the oil tanker crashed into a reef while on the way to California from Alaska. 10.8 million gallons of oil were released into the water, which produced a slick that covered 1,300 miles of coastline and 11,000 square miles of ocean. So huge were the consequences of this accident that Exxon have paid out more than $3.5 billion in cleanup, relocation, and damages. Number 3. Shinyo Sawako Ship Crash. In 2008, the Shinyo Sawako crashed into a smaller fishing boat about 200 miles off the coast of Kyushu Island in Japan. The fishing vessel sank soon after the crash, and despite a major rescue effort, only 2 crew from a total of 13 were recovered, presumably one of them being the photographer of this image. It never became clear exactly how this accident managed to occur, but this image from before the impact shows how inevitable the outcome would be. Number 2. The Costa Concordia. The Costa Concordia was a 13-deck cruise ship with a capacity of 3,780 passengers. It offered cruises around Europe and was well known for its luxurious offerings. This all changed in 2012 though, when the ship's captain decided to take a different route than planned so the passengers would get a better view of the shoreline. Unfortunately, the ship hit a rock, began to tilt, and partially sank. 32 people were killed in the tragedy, and the ship was completely ruined. The final cost of its salvage and cleanup is thought to have been around $2 billion. Number 1. Beached Bulbous Bow. Large ships often have a bulbous bow that changes the way water flows around the ship in order to reduce drag and therefore increase the efficiency of the engines. This shape makes it prone to getting caught in incidents though, as was the case in 2009 when the MV Marty Princess and the MV Renate Schult became entangled. The bow of the Schult raised up on the top of the Princess and meant that both crews had to be evacuated. The damage was extensive and the repair bill went well into the millions. Now, despite ships being very safe compared to driving, the thought of being involved in an accident at sea still terrifies us, and understandably.